there's lots of new evidence and drama involving George Zimmerman, and I think that it makes the case a lot more complicated than it was before.
Yes.
So I'm going to read you the list of new evidence that's been released by the prosecution. According to the evidence, Trayvon's girlfriend told investigators that she was talking with him on the phone, which we already knew about. However, she says that while she was talking to him, he said, quote, "Get off, get off."
Not to her, obviously, but when Zimmerman had caught up with him. Because he said that this guy was chasing him. She told him, run. Trayvon Martin starts running. And apparently at some point, he was near his house. He stopped running. Zimmerman catches up to him. This is all according to the girlfriend's account. And she hears Trayvon tell Zimmerman, get off, get off. And then there's rustling and a thump, and then she doesn't hear anything after that. So it's not his last words. It's the last words that anyone else heard, was him telling Zimmerman, get off.
She also claims that she heard the voice of an older man saying, quote, "What are you doing around here?" to Trayvon Martin.
Okay. So now she is Trayvon Martin's girlfriend. You can take that with a grain of salt, as you take the fact that George Zimmerman's family physician says he had a broken nose the next day, also with a grain of salt. They have some, obviously, perspective on this case. They're on one side or another, you would imagine, right? But she had clearly said all throughout that he started running, and she was on the phone with him when Trayvon started running away from George Zimmerman.
Now, a paramedic obviously showed up to the scene and examined George Zimmerman, and the paramedic noted that he had bleeding and tenderness to his nose, a small laceration to the back of his head, and all injuries have minor bleeding.
So let's see some of those pictures and take a look for ourselves. There's no question that he's got these scratches and et cetera. So right there, you see a bunch of scratches to his forehead, to the side of the head, to the nose. Is the nose broken? Well,
no, it's not broken.
It certainly doesn't look like it's out of place, right? Could it have a minor fracture? I guess, but it looks like it's exactly in its place. And of course, a lot of people see this and they go, aha! I knew it. Poor Zimmerman was attacked. And then of course the back of his head was bleeding, and as you see it there, right? And again, did none of these scratches, or whatever you want to call them, abrasions, whatever, required stitches at all. He was perfectly fine, didn't have to go to the hospital, etc. Now, for people who haven't been in fights, they might look at this and go, oh my God, look at that blood, and look, this skin has been pierced, etc., right? I've been in fights, and that was relatively minor. Okay, I had my nose broken in a fight in Florida, of all places. It didn't look like that. Now this, I'm not saying there wasn't a fight, and here's conclusion number one and number two for you guys. One is Zimmerman obviously started the whole thing in the first place. We have the 911 call where the dispatcher says, do not pursue him, and Zimmerman goes after him anyway, and you've got Trayvon's girlfriend saying that Zimmerman was pursuing. There's no question Zimmerman started.
That's actually another piece of evidence. The lead investigator, Christopher Serino, told prosecutors the fight could have been avoided if Zimmerman had stayed in his vehicle. So that is part of the evidence.
Right. Conclusion number two is there was definitely a fight, right? Now, before that was an open question because Zimmerman looked perfectly fine and we didn't even know if there was a fight. Now it looks like there was some sort of scuffle. Okay. Now, I need everybody to understand that that's not the end of the question. Okay. You can't just run up to somebody with a gun and chase them down, and if they fight back, shoot them. That's not legal. Even understand your ground, it's not legal. You're not standing your ground, you ran into the guy, right? And what is a guy supposed to do? If somebody chases you down, are you supposed to, if you don't have a gun, are you supposed to immediately grovel and go, oh my God, oh, what would you, okay, kick my ass, do whatever you want to me. Now, on the other hand, if Trayvon had a gun, which is really interesting, then since Zimmerman is coming for him, I guess he could have shot Zimmerman dead and then said, look, there was a fight. TCH was found in his blood and his urine, Trayvon Martin's blood and urine in the autopsy. And he had abrasions on his knuckles as well, or on one knuckle.
they found out that the levels were so low that it indicated that he had ingested it days prior to the incident.
Days prior to the incident, and I'm sorry, it's THC, of course.
Yeah, there's a few more pieces of evidence that I think are important to tell you guys about. Serino, who's the lead investigator, wrote in a report that he played the 911 tape for Trayvon Martin's father. And when he played the tape for his father, he says, "I asked Martin if the voice calling for help was his son. Mr. Martin, clearly emotionally impacted by the recording, quietly responded no." Another piece of evidence is one witness, a former Middle Eastern co-worker of George Zimmerman's, and he said that he stayed away from Zimmerman as much as possible because Zimmerman would bully him because he was Middle Eastern at work all the time.
Oh, that's really interesting. Now, so final thing as far as the evidence is concerned is that there is no final thing. We're going to hear more evidence for months on end. There's going to be the trial, and at every turn, everybody's going to go, oh, well, it must have been Zimmerman. Oh, it must have been Trayvon. Oh, I switched back and forth, etc. So bring it down. Calm down. Now we have footage of Trayvon. These are his last moments at the 7-Eleven when he went to go now buy the famous Skittles and iced tea. So first of all, it's chilling to see his last moments alive. So that's interesting. And then second of all, he's larger, of course, than in some of the earlier pictures that were shown. So is that going to sway anybody in terms of, well, he might have gotten the upper hand on Zimmerman, given that he's now 6 feet tall, and Zimmerman had slimmed down from the earlier pictures we saw of him. Now, just because you're 6 feet tall doesn't mean somebody gets to shoot you in the chest or chase you down, right? And he's still 17 years old, etc. That's the reality. But the perception of the jury is the most important thing. So if they see him and he looks like a grown man there, even though he's only 17, does that sway them in some ways? On the other hand, they might look at this video and go, poor kid, he's buying Skittles and iced tea, and next thing you know, he gets shot. So, but it's at least interesting evidence that might sway the jury one way or another.